Good morning. I am Susie Weinbeck, and my husband Wyman and I have been members for about 5 years. We were so happy that we found this fellowship and have been very grateful to be a part of it these past few years. If you are a visitor, either on site or online, we are glad you are with us, and we invite you to stay after the service to get acquainted. We welcome your questions and look forward to getting to know you. We are very happy to have Reverend Kelli Clement from Minneapolis with us here today to present a very important message. And I'll be sharing a bit more about her background a little later in the service. I want to call your attention to the announcements in your order of service, and they can be found in your weekly email. There you'll find more information about the following. On May 20th and 21st, Rachel Maxwell, a UU consultant with Stewardship for Us, will be here for a Next Steps weekend. She'll lead a number of small group conversations about the mission, vision, and future of UUFN on Saturday, May 20th, and then we'll present her findings and insights after the service next Sunday. If you would like a schedule of when those meetings are going to happen next Saturday, there are papers at the back of the church. They're blue and green, I guess. You are invited to a conversation remembering Mother, Gifts and Challenges, to be held on Monday, May 22nd, in person at the UUFN from 1 to 2:30. How does Mother continue to live on in your life? What's been hard? What are you grateful for? Come prepared to share a mother story or two that reveal and celebrate the gifts and challenges woven into this important relationship. Please contact Mary Jane Lipinski if you are interested in joining this conversation. For next Sunday's worship service, join Reverend Sarah and Worship Associate Bob Spear as we consider how we create sacred space together and what we're called to create next as a congregation. As mentioned before, Stewardship for Us consultant Rachel Maxwell will present her recommendations after the service. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northfield. Thank you, Nick. The opening words today are from Meditation for Mother's Day, written by Jeffrey Siemienkiewicz. I think that's how it's pronounced. This is the kind of God I could worship, a heavenly mother who prefers imitation to adoration, and who sees in all creation the indivisible smiles of her children. Our mother, holy wisdom, draws one breath, and even we who are miles away are warmed by the glory of her inspiration. Our Mother, Holy Wisdom, reaches out, and even we locked up against ourselves are immersed in the blessings of her embrace. This earth is her body, and we, children of the earth, are her children. It is really as simple as that. Let us honor our Holy Mother by loving our bodies made in her image, by loving one another as she has loved us, by loving this earth, our beautiful and eternal home. Come as we honor mothers and mothering in our hearts. Let us worship together. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Each Sunday when we gather, we bring this symbol to life together. Please join me in speaking the words for the lighting of the chalice. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. Will you please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 1017, Building a New Way.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone. I am so delighted to be with you here today, back with you again, and for me here in your new space. To me, it's new because I haven't been here before. I know we are not doing a children's time today, but I want to read you a children's book. This is a very small printing. You won't find this book if you go to the good bookstores here in Northfield, unlikely anyway. It's called What's an Abortion Anyway? And I think this is a very helpful book and language for us as adults to have as we think about talking to young people who might ask us, what's this thing that's been in the news or we've been talking about, or about bodily autonomy. we adults sometimes get a little hinky about it. And so I think this is some good language. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. What's an Abortion Anyway by Carly Maines. When a person gets pregnant, many different things can happen. Some people are pregnant for many months and have a baby. That's what happened to you. Some people have a miscarriage. A miscarriage is when a pregnancy isn't healthy enough to keep growing. Some people have an abortion. An abortion is when someone decides to stop growing their pregnancy. There are many different ways that people who are pregnant can have an abortion. Some people see a doctor who does a special procedure to remove the pregnancy from inside a person's body. Other people take medicine to stop the pregnancy from growing bigger. Abortion is very safe, and millions of people have abortions every year around the world. No matter how someone has an abortion, everyone should be able to decide the way that is best for them. People have abortions for different reasons. Some people have abortions because they like their family exactly as it is. Some people have abortions because they can't take care of a new baby right now. Some people have abortions because their doctors say pregnancy could make them sick. No matter the reason, everyone should be able to make this decision for themselves. People have many different feelings before, during, and after their abortion. Some people want to talk about it, some people don't. Some people feel happy or calm. Some people feel sad and lonely. Many people feel all of these things at the same time. No matter how someone feels about their abortion, they deserve to be treated with love and respect. We can never really know what it's like to be someone else. And that's the end. I love the language of just saying abortion, not euphemisms for it, normalizing the word, normalizing the procedure, and normalizing the many ways that we express ourselves as humans. So that's our starting point for today. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. And we will now take our offering. Our offering is one way we make our care for the world tangible. This month, our Share the Plate recipient is Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is dedicated to comprehensive reproductive health care for all ages and genders. Our Unitarian Universalist faith holds central the inherent worth and dignity of all people, which includes a belief in the sacredness of all bodies and the importance of self-determination and human agency. Tangible financial support of Planned Parenthood is one way we put this value into action. You may donate by cash, check made out to UUFN with offering basket in the memo line, or online from our website, uunorthfield.org. You can scroll down to the bottom of the homepage for the link. We now gratefully accept the offering. invite you to allow yourself to relax into an unhurried breath. Relax your shoulders, soften your gaze and your heart, and find ease in this moment. Rest in the embrace of a wider love. In the presence of this greater love, we use our chalice flame to light our candles of community. We light our first candle as a blessing for the wider world, a candle of concern and empathy over the plight of migrants and their arduous struggle to escape their home countries, the thousands of people enduring unimaginable hardships, leaving their homes not by choice, but rather out of sheer desperation, motivated by the universal human instinct to protect their loved ones and secure a brighter future for themselves and their children. We know too that the details of our daily lives are sacred and important. We now light a candle for all the simple joys that are sustaining us. And we light another candle in honor of the sorrows and hardships we might be carrying. And we move into a time of silence. May the truth of your heart be reflected in these flames. Can go with spirit of life. The Reverend Kelli Clement is assistant minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, where her portfolio includes social justice and pastoral care. She also serves as quarter-time minister for the St. Croix Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Wisconsin. A 2010 MDiv graduate and former board member of United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities, Kelli is currently a doctoral student at UTS. She is the former executive director of the Minnesota Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice and worked as a training consultant for the National Office of RCRC, educating clergy around the country in pastoral care for reproductive decisions and reproductive loss. She managed FUS's role as plaintiff in the lawsuit that successfully challenged restrictions to abortion access. Art play as a spiritual practice helps her cope with living through the apocalypse. Welcome, Reverend Kelli.
Thank you, thank you. I want to just say how lovely it was to hear the seated choir members singing on Spirit of Life. Oh, you bring that so beautifully to life. The Unitarian Universalist Association put some resources together shortly after Roe v. Wade was overturned last year, and they asked for submissions of writing, and this was my piece called Learn to Tell Your Story. My most impactful life decisions in chronological order: to have abortions when I needed them, to get sober, to give birth to our child. If each life is precious, so is mine, so is hers, so is yours. I do not feel regret, nor am I shameful about my abortions. Rather, I am grateful for access to abortion care by professional, compassionate providers. And for, as Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has said, the opportunity to captain my own ship. A wish for all of us, especially for my adult child's generation: robust reproductive health care and bodily autonomy and freedom without stigma or restriction. An end to heteronormative patriarchal white supremacy culture, and love and liberation in abundance. May it be so. So, what I'm thinking of today, happy member of the sandwich generation that I am, with a mom who has her wits about her, and whom I love and who loves me, and with an adult daughter whom I love and who loves me. What I'm thinking of today is that motherhood is both a fact and a fiction. Motherhood is a fact and a fiction. It's a complicated and complex day. Let's just get that all said at the beginning. Many people in this room have lost their mothers who have passed from this earthly circle and now live in our memories. Sometimes those memories are happy ones, and sometimes not. Sometimes if our mother figure is living, it's a complex, complicated relationship, sometimes unresolved. Sometimes we want to be parents and are not. Motherhood was not in the cards for us. Sometimes there are those among us who have had children and lost children, perhaps maybe estranged from children. I often think that my happy sandwich situation is rare indeed, and I am mindful of that as we talk about Mother's Day. Mother's Day is a fact and a fiction. It's complex for many of us. So I just want to say, whatever you're bringing in the space with you today, that is all welcome here. There's no hallmark on this stamp for this hour. I say that motherhood is a fact and a fiction because birthing is biology. I'll talk a bit about pregnancy as biology and parenting as covenant, but birthing is a biological thing we do. One of the things I didn't mention is if you're a child who was placed for adoption, or a parent who placed a child for adoption, or who is an adoptive parent, that's another layer of complexity that the Hallmark card doesn't always give you language for. But I say that it's a fiction because of this outsized place that motherhood has in our collective imagination. It seems like, almost like the language that we use for the most divine, the most holy, God, is a magnet for all the things we want to put on it, good or bad or indifferent, but it's almost never neutral. If I say God in this room among Unitarian Universalists, it's a magnet for many of the experiences we may have had as young people growing up in the religions of our past. It's a magnet for all that we bring. If I put motherhood in the public square, it's a magnet for all kinds of preconceived notions, what it should be, what it shouldn't be, how it shows up. In this patriarchal system that we live in, motherhood can be a lightning rod And the very proof of that is the way our society wishes to control bodily autonomy, whether it's for parenthood, for different expressions of sexuality, whatever it is, we want to control it. It should be thus, right? In the parlance of authoritarianism, white supremacy culture, and white Christian nationalism, I want to be very clear that when I talk about Christianity, I'm not talking about Christianity writ large, but Christian nationalism, that authoritarian movement. There's exactly one way to be male and exactly one way to be female. To be male as more dominant, to be the decider, and to be female as more submissive and mothering and nurturing. That's the way it's set up. So that's one of the things that we're challenged with in these days, to create a theology of reproductive justice that doesn't hook into those negative tropes and create something new. So reproductive justice, I have said this to this congregation before, and I think it bears repeating every time I speak. So when I say reproductive justice, I'm talking about a human rights framework first articulated by Black women some 30 years ago, who recognized that pro-choice was not complex enough, it was not intersectional enough to understand all the ways that people think about their reproductive lives. Reproductive justice is a human rights framework of three ideas: the right to have children, the right to not have children, and the right to raise our children in safe and healthy environments. The right to have children, the right to not have children, and the right to raise our children in safe and healthy environments. That third one makes all of the other justice work that we do intersectional with reproductive justice. Climate justice work, gun safety, economic security, working against mass incarceration and the criminal legal system, you name it. All of those come together in that. The work of reproductive justice is to counter this idea that there is one moment that personhood attaches, and forever after, you can't do anything about that. And as a humanist, I serve a humanist congregation in Minnesota. As a humanist, I am very interested not in countering the proof texts, the theological word that human life begins at conception. That's not biology. That is a theological construct. And I'm very interested in not arguing that, but saying, what do we mean by this theology? What do we mean without arguing against personhood? So here's what I think. Imagine this as in the most expansive way you can. All right, I'm going to go a little bit to Genesis and the creation story here. I want you to imagine this in the most expansive way you can, and try not to get hooked on any prejudice you have against Scripture. All right, I'm asking. I know my people. If humans are created in the image of Creator, if humans are created in the image of Creator, we are created creative. Life doesn't just come to us and happen and we just bob along on the top. We are co-creators of life. We are participants in evolution. We are co-creators. I am interested in how can we understand this in ways that are not about a capital C creator, but rather about co-creation, about evolution, or as the Reverend Dr. Andrea Johnson says, the restless, ambiguous, interconnected web of being and ground of all reality. If we are co-participants in the restless, ambiguous web of being and ground of all reality, then it means that the ultimate reality is not out there, but among, within, and inside all of us. Does that make sense? You following me? I have to chew on this a little bit to kind of get there, but it's been useful to me to think of it this way. So if I think we are nature aware of itself, the universe aware of itself, then how does nature reproduce? Well, among placental mammals, it reproduces with sperm and egg and pregnancy. We can deal with the marsupials and the other mammals. They're not who I'm worried about today. We placental mammals are all gathered here. Many other species reproduce egg and sperm. I'm not worried about them today. But every species of reproduction cooperates with excess. Not every sperm and egg united create the fetus and the infant and the juvenile of that species. It creates with excess, right? Not every pregnancy comes to fruition. This is especially true among human beings. We think that perhaps a quarter of all pregnancies end in miscarriage, often before you even know that you're pregnant, right? This notion that the sperm and egg united is something beyond which we can have conversation about what we should do with it is a fallacy in nature. Nature creates with excess. So pregnancy is biology. It is not parenting. Pregnancy is biology. It is a biological process. It doesn't have anything to do with wanted or not wanted. It doesn't have anything to do with parenting. That is something separate. My thesis is that pregnancy is biology, but parenting is covenant. We are covenantal people. We make promises together. The first of our 7 principles begin with, we, the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, we covenant this as in our corporate body, but we also do it between us. Covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are covenantal people. We say that it is more important how we behave together in covenant than what we say we believe, right? We don't say a creed here. Parenting is covenant. What promises do I make to you, my child? What promises do I make to a developing fetus? What promises do I make to my partner? What promises do I make to my existing children? Parenting is covenant, and I say to you that cannot be legislated. You cannot force someone into a covenant. It is not a covenant if it's forced, right? When you get married, there's language that says, do you come here freely? Right? Nobody should be forced to do that. You can't force a covenant. And so that's the theology that I'm working with now, that pregnancy is biology. Let us do all we can for pregnant people who wish to be pregnant. Let us do all we can for healthcare in all the ways. Absolutely. And let us not force people to be parents when they are not prepared, for whatever reason, There's a lot that's been said in this environment now about, well, some abortions might be okay, but others not. And even those small protections are being rolled back. But it does not matter. It does not matter why I'm unable, unwilling, unready to make that covenant. We never thought we'd have to tell our abortion stories. Never thought we'd have to, because it's our own business, right? So we're in a different world now. And I've been doing this work for some 30 years. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've put the S on abortions. 1 might have been okay, but 2 was just stupid. But I was no more ready the second time to make that covenant than I was the first time. It was the right decision both times. Grateful, glad and grateful for my abortions. So I think what I want to say to you, and then I'm going to open this up for some dialogue, because this is good to have some dialogue around. We used to use the language of safe, legal, and rare. Many of you hold that language, and it was an important formulation in its time. I think that language now leads to stigmatization. That was the reason I couldn't put the S on abortions, right? It means that some are okay and some are not. Now what I say is safe, legal, and accessible. I want it to be safe, legal, and accessible. I want to normalize the word and normalize the procedure. It's an extraordinarily safe procedure. This business about medication abortion that's been in the news, it's safer than Tylenol. Certainly safer than Viagra. Motherhood is a fact and a fiction. It is a lightning rod for the ways that we project our own internal understandings and desires. And so my goal is to help us open it up and talk about it without having to talk about personhood, because I think that's a trap, and that leads us to talking in somebody else's theology, not mine. So I think I'll close right there. I will take the microphone, if you'll bring it to me, and we'll share a little dialogue. And I'll just say, for folks who are online, if you have a question or something and you want to put it in the chat, we'll do our best to respond to that. Please. Thank you. Sometimes one of the things I like to say is, whatever your first response to somebody who is anti-abortion, like the thing that you most want to say first, don't they just understand? You've got your own. We could just do that out loud right now. If you want to get your first response right off the top of your head. On 3, all out loud. 1, 2, 3. What you care about the real children. Got it? Now we can go on. Okay. Comments, thoughts, what are you wrestling with now? You don't all have to agree with me. Yeah, over here.
So I don't think I'm wrestling with this, but I want to preface this, my opinion about this, with something my mom said to me in her final. in her final days, and we agreed upon it finally. And it was a simple statement, but it wasn't easy for us to get there. It took 70 some years probably. And she said, "I love you, but it's hard." And my take on this subject that we're broaching here today is this, and I say this to people all the time. I'm pro-life because I value life. And I'm pro-choice because I value freedom.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. It is hard. It is hard to wrestle with. Yes.
I'd like to say two separate things. First of all, I read one time that the reason that they made Mary a virgin was because then no human woman could measure up. It was really freeing to read that. The other thing was I was paralyzed in 1969 and told I was never going to walk again. And then they said, throw away the birth control pill. That's bad for you. And don't get pregnant. It's like, yeah, it was a little bit difficult. Well, I got pregnant. Not sure how, but boy, that pill was really, really something. But, and when I did, the doctor had said to me, do not get pregnant. You will pay a price for it. You will not be good. So now we had to look at choice, and we were ready to do an abortion if it meant that with the 2 children I had, that I was going to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. But then I decided to call the neurologist and asked him, and he said, "Now go ahead, you'll be okay." One, if I hadn't had that choice, everything would have looked different, no matter what decision we made. 2, it turned out stellingly good. That's the good news.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I think every person in this room, whatever your sexual identity, if you have children or not, has a reproductive story, right? Every one of us, by nature of being human, we have a reproductive story. So thank you for sharing that. And by the way, Mary did have a choice. She says, "Let it be with me as you have said." She could have said, "Oh, not me. We're not doing that." Right? So yeah, the very scripture has that choice article in it. Other thoughts that you're thinking of today?
Just a comment. I just really appreciate the distinction that you're making of pregnancy as biology and parenting as covenant, because it really is those two things going on, and they're very distinct. There's a time lapse for the first, and there's, who knows about the second parenting one, that goes on all your life. But I chose not to have children myself. The only time I felt ready for it was about when I turned 50. So much for that idea. As a person that raised livestock for many, many years, I certainly was present for lots of different types of pregnancies that were successful and not successful, and etc. So it's a lovely way to distinguish that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more it kind of gloms onto me. Dissertation coming soon.
It just irritates me politically, legally, financially, biologically, whatever, economically, that we're in this time where we have politicalization, legalization, division, hatred, blaming over such a simple question. My idea is, if you need one, get one. If you don't want one, don't get one. Isn't that simple? Just make it simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Kelly, for such a great context. It can be expanded not only to covenants with others, but with yourself and with your career, with other obligations. For example, when Roe v. Wade happened in the 72 area, women were dramatically more likely to complete law school or doctorate programs or graduate programs because they were able to keep that covenant with themselves.
I appreciate that. And I think in my own case, I think I intuited what I wouldn't have been able to say when I was an active alcoholic in 1983 and my life was a pretty substantial mess, that parenting was the most important decision I was ever going to make. It's the most important thing I was ever going to do. And I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it, right? I wanted to do it right. And so who knew that better than me? Who could possibly know that better than me? But thank you for that context. Yeah, please.
I am a mom, and my girls are the most important things to me. And parenting is such an important job. And if you don't want to be a parent, an active parent, you shouldn't be a parent. I'm pro-life because of my girls, but I'm pro-choice because I've had an abortion when I was younger because of my circumstances. And I don't think it's anybody else's business what we do with our bodies. And I don't think we should be having these these discussions, yes, but out there, the ones where people tell people what they can and can't do, I don't think it should even be a discussion. I think that these discussions need to happen more so that we can learn to love each other better.
Thanks very much, and thanks for sharing your story. Let me pass it this way and then I'll come around.
There's a desire to control people's behavior in an oppressive way. I mean, there's laws that say we drive on the right-hand side of the road. That's not everywhere. And that's not oppressing. That's just creating some order in society. But to deny a woman access to health care is oppression. And those who oppress, I will say, do so out of fear. And obviously, to me, their hearts are not at peace. So what is the war that's going on? Because that's the underlying thing in this society that we're really grappling with. And unless we really understand it and bring it to light, we're going to continue with this conflict.
I think I really like that question. What is the war? That Lee Finke, you may know, is the first transgender representative in the Minnesota House of Representatives. Has done amazing work and was responsible in large part for the conversion therapy ban that had been working for several years, but also the Trans Refuge Act. And lots of people worked on the Trans Refuge Act in Minnesota, but Lee particularly. And just last week, I was in a setting with her and she said, you know, Tim Walz talks about one Minnesota, but she says this is really one fight. The fight for our climate, the fight for gun-free streets, the fight for bodily autonomy, the fight for economic security, all of those things. And so I think when people are against those sort of things, there's a really important piece to me that says follow the money. And what is a sense of loss that people have of being the control? And how do we use religion for control? What's the one answer? God, in quotes I'm using, is going to give me the one answer, and there's one right way. I don't want to disparage people who have a different political viewpoint than I do, because I think we need different political viewpoints. I think that's fine. But this is a really interesting question about what's the war within someone that makes them negate other people and other people's bodily autonomy. It's a powerful question.
Thank you, Kelly, for your message. I raised my two sons as UUs in this congregation. I haven't lived here for 10 years, but I remember when we were at the Arts Guild and at the Masonic Temple, and I credit the UUs and all of you with helping turn my boys into loving, open-minded people. I remember when Sam, my older son, was about 6, and we were driving downtown from our house right over here, and I saw 2 male ducks at the side of the road. And I said, well, that's unusual. You usually see a male and a female. And he said, just very matter-of-factly, well, maybe they're gay. And I thought, that's the UUs. The day of the Dobbs decision on June 24th, I was very fortunate the next day to have signed up to table for Planned Parenthood at Pride. And so I had this really joyful thing to do the day after that devastating decision. But Sam decided to get a vasectomy and told his dad and me about that decision. There's sorrow in that. We will never be grandparents. Maybe he'll adopt children. But I just want to bring the aspect of male choice and male responsibility into this as well. And while a part of Sam's decision, I'll be honest, broke my heart a little bit, that came from the UUs, and it came from UUFN, and it's just so good to be here and to see some of my old friends again.
Thank you, Amy. I think we'll close that there. There's lots of conversation to still be had. I invite you to still be in conversation with each other about it, with loving kindness and all the ways that that we may do that together. So our closing song is a call and response, and I'm just going to lead you in it. You've got the lyrics, but you don't really need them. You don't really need them. I'm going to start, and whenever you feel like you're ready to come in, you can come in. We're going to do verses 1, 2, and 3 on here, and you can stand if you like. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. 'Cause you gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. Look up ahead. The path is there. The path is there. 'Cause you gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. And I'm scared too. But here I am. But here I am. Right next to you. Right next to you. 'Cause you gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. There we go.
Thank you so much, Reverend Kelly. You had closing words? Okay. We now join together in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together ahead. Please rise in body or spirit, and with our hands over our hearts or holding a hand of those next to us, we sing words of blessing one to another. Go in peace.
That's good.